All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Let's find segment number 2 of our AfricArena Berlin Summit. Hello and welcome back also to our online audience from all over the world. It sounds so crazy to say that. It's the first time I'm saying like hello to everyone all over the world. It's phenomenal to have this much attention drawn to our activities between the continents. So we appreciate all of you. Of course, big shout out to everyone who made it here to Berlin today. I can see the room is really nicely filled up now. I hope you all had an amazing lunch, met some new people, had some cool conversations, because this is, as we said earlier, what our summit should be about. It's to foster really deep and human connections between Africa enthusiasts, between investors, between startups, between you guys, so that we can strengthen this trust bridge and trust element that is so needed when doing investments and venture activities between the continents. Before we dive in and I'll introduce our next keynote speaker, I just wanted to give a big thank you to the team of Code University for hosting us here today, which has been just a super flawless experience. So Thomas Bachem, the founder of Code University, who is a big Cape Town and South Africa fan himself, was so gracious that when I phoned him a few weeks back and said, hey Thomas, we want to launch something in Berlin, we're coming with African founders and the ecosystem, I'm looking for a really cool venue. He said, Michael, anytime, we support this. Maybe we can even launch a campus of Code University one day in Africa, which would be a great achievement. So Thomas, when you see this, either live or in the recording, big thank you for your support. Your team, Thomas especially, who has been of such great help to make this all happen, and also to the team of Factory. How did we enjoy the lunch? Was it delicious? Can I get like a... Okay, cool. Lovely. And obviously, I mean, the ones who were here earlier, the gracious support of AWS startups has been, a massive contribution to make all of this happen. And yeah, we also as partner are, of course, delighted to be part of this exciting, first show up of the summit here in Berlin. And I hope that this first one, like, you all get a lot of value out of it, so that when we continue to do that all over the world, especially in Germany and Europe, that we increase the level of audience all the time and like share the message, spread the message about this incredible potential that is withholding the African ecosystem. That being said, our next keynote speaker. Please, now as we're all strong after the lunch, I expect so guys, the guys who haven't been here in the morning, it was a little bit of a wake-up vibe, but now I want to hear this entire room when we are welcoming our next speaker, Enzo Censi of Africa Green Tech, to the stage. Please join me, Enzo. And Enzo is going to enlighten us on the topic of, how, we can turn challenges in sub-Saharan Africa into opportunities through sustainable innovation. Enzo, over to you.
Thank you. Perfect. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Just checking if that works. Yes, perfect. So I had the opportunity to do a keynote today, but I still wanted to present what Africa Green Tech is about. And for me, the best way to do so was to find a topic that bridges something that we solve every day, which is some key challenges of sub-Saharan Africa. So the name exactly of the keynote is Turning Challenges in Sub-Saharan Africa into Opportunities Through Sustainable Innovation. And I'm going to present you what Africa Green Tech is doing and who we are. I know that I don't have the easiest spot right after lunch. I know it's nap time for some people, but I would just like to ask you to take 2 minutes to imagine that you have to start your business without access to electricity in the village. But your only option, obviously, is to power your machines with expensive diesel generators. And we all know that burning diesel to produce electricity is inefficient for sure and causes a massive damage environment all over Africa, but all over the world. So the lack of energy access has massive effects on critical infrastructures in Africa. You probably know that 600 million people do not have access to electricity. 54% of rural population has no access to clean water. 40% of the fruit and vegetables goes to waste, and 71% of the population do not have access to reliable internet. So this is, as you see here, one of the first impact stories that we have. It's the story of Nassou Omar, who was already on his way to Europe, and when he got to know that Africa Green Tech was about to electrify the village, he decided to stay, and he's now a proper serial entrepreneur with more than 20 employees and few businesses. So we are a mini-grid developer. For the ones that are not familiar with what's a mini-grid is a decentralized PV and battery system that is to differ between the central power station, what we have in Europe, in Germany, for example, and the small solar home system. So what we do, as you see here, is to develop a containerized solution with solar panels around, and we connect this solar mobile power plant to the household and small businesses of the village. The impact side, so the impact side is the core product, the core business unit of Africa Green Tech. You recognize here in the middle the solar container that is electrifying, again, the household and the small and medium businesses. But not only this, you also have the cool container that you see here below. It's a cold storage room set up in a container, in a 20-feet container. Either can be electrified through the solar container or can be electrified through the solar panels. We also have a water purification system, and we connect the households and the small and medium businesses with the smart meters. The smart meters are potentially the same things as you have in your home. It's how the energy company is going to track how much electricity you've been consuming in the last month. It's exactly the same that we set up, but it's a bit different because the villagers prepay the solution, meaning that they are going to first order the amount of electricity they plan to consume. If they have a TV, 2 TV, if they have some bigger appliances, this is the way it works. And the last one, the internet access via Wi-Fi. First, you recognize again the solar container. I'm going to explain you briefly what was here the old solution and the new solution afterward. Again, this is an innovation that we've been developing to try to solve one of the biggest challenges, such as the lack of electricity access. So this was the first device that we developed. It's a 50 kilowatt peak device, and it can provide electricity to up to 400 households, 40 SMEs, and 10 communal facilities. Here is the new version of the solar container, way more cost effective and with adaptable power of electricity. So you can see a smaller size, 25 kilowatt peak, 50 kilowatt peak, and 75 kilowatt peak. This was our first lesson learned, and this is why we created this different solar mobile power plant, because we realized that with the first model, the Amali, it was kind of complicated to adapt the demand or adapt the offer of electricity according to the demand. And we are way more cost effective. It's about 30% less expensive than the solar container Amali, so we can also become more cost effective in the village and sell the electricity at a smaller price. The impact products, I mentioned already the cool containers, I mentioned already the water purification system and the solar water pump. The solar water pumps, we already have one pilot project in Senegal. What we did is we created a crowdfunding campaign to pre-finance the solar water pump, and then we sold them or we leased them in the village. And thanks to the solar water pump, people can generate more revenues than in their farms and then pay back the lease. Here is the new business unit, or what we decided to do since 2022. We noticed that big enterprises, big humanitarian organizations want to shift from using diesel generators. They want to get rid of diesel generators and now use a sustainable source of electricity. In 2017, the UNHCR, which is the refugee agency of the UN, and some other humanitarian organizations spent $1.2 billion in just diesel generators with fuels. So it's kind of crazy. They want to become more cost effective and they want to become more sustainable. One thing why all these organizations want to work with companies such as Africa Green Tech, it's because they don't want to work with random organizations. We are already operating in Africa since 2016. We have already a track record. We know how to do it, and that's why we are one of the first companies that they contact when they want to change their way of electrifying their compounds. So this is also, I would say, the way for us to generate additional revenues or to generate more revenues instead of, for example, the villages where obviously the revenues are much lower. So I spoke about AfricArena Tech, what we do, but maybe now who we are. We are more than 120 employees in between Africa and Europe. I would say 25 in Germany and 95 employees in Africa. We are present mainly in Mali, as you see, with about 20 villages electrified. We have one in Niger, one in Madagascar, and one in Senegal. We also are now setting up the new headquarters in Dakar to slowly move our operations from Germany to Africa. Now our production site is fully in Dakar. And yes, maybe just from the origin of Africa Green Tech, this is Thorsten and Aida Schreiber who created the company in 2016. Thorsten is German and Aida is from Mali, and that's why we started our operations in Mali in 2016, because obviously better access to the government, and yeah, it was just easier to start there. Also in terms of needs of the population, maybe in terms of SDGs. I haven't seen that many SDGs this morning, I must say, so I'm allowing myself to present you some here. We are electrifying about 62,000 people, saved around 4,000 tons of CO2 and providing electricity to about 1,000 small businesses. I'm always speaking about the small businesses because we believe in the productive use of electricity. What I mean by productive use of electricity, it's that a lot of small and medium businesses cannot develop themselves because sometimes they have access to electricity 2 hours a day via diesel generators. And thanks to the electricity of Africa Green Tech, they can access to electricity for 8 hours, which they can generate 6, 4, sometimes 10 times more revenues, because just it's easier for them to develop their activities with 8 hours of electricity per day. Yes, we also believe that there is an enormous market potential for mini-grids. At the moment, in 2022, it's about 21,000 mini-grids, and the World Bank says that by 2030, we might reach 217,000 mini-grids connecting 500 million people. I don't think it's going to be the truth, because we still lack a lot of investment and I would say regulations in the countries to ease this way, but we are trying our best. Currently in Africa, so just maybe to explain you how it works, when we electrify villages, it's not just us arriving in a country and saying, okay, we want to electrify 50 villages. There are a lot of steps before. Either the government is going to ask us, hey, we saw that you electrify 20 villages in Mali, please can you do the same in our country? But still we need to select to see if the village makes sense for the inhabitants, if a product like the solar timer makes sense for the people living in the villages, but also if it makes sense for us, economically speaking. You can see also here in green the CNI project. So we already signed a contract with SOS Children Villages and UNHCR, where we are going to electrify 3 compounds this year in Kenya and Uganda. So here I wanted to highlight, so I was speaking at the beginning, the biggest challenges, of course, and in Africa sometimes we tend to speak about the challenges, but there are so many opportunities, and we see that Africa Green Tech is present on these 3 big mega trends. The first one, decarbonization. Of course, we are in because we develop clean energy solutions. Second one, decentralization. Of course, we are also in this one because we develop off-grid solar. We are an off-grid solar energy provider developing decentralized energy solutions. And the last one, digitalization, because even in the villages we bring the digitalization via the smart meters, meaning that we are us, for example, in Germany, connected to each and every smart meter in Africa, we can track the electricity, we can track the consumption and everything, which makes us at the forefront of digitalization. And here, just 3 points that are always good to remember, that I'm not teaching you because I think you all know that. And again, I'm speaking about the opportunities that more than 60% of Africa's population is under the age of 25. It gives a lot. It means a lot. In 2022, African startups attracted, I think, almost $7 billion funding. Of course, it has been mentioned this morning, it's not as big as what's going on in Europe or in the US, but it's already a lot. And the last one, the projected increase in Africa's collective GDP by 2050, it's going to be ×4. So this shows a lot how the place of Africa, how it's going to be in the next few years, and and why it makes sense to do something and to take part of it. Maybe quickly about impact. Again, I'm showing you some SDGs. We address 11 of 70 SDGs, which is quite a lot, I must say. Of course, all linked to SDG 7, affordable and clean electricity, with direct effects on climate action, quality education, decent work, clean water, zero hunger, you name them. And then, obviously, short-term impact. I'm speaking about these SDGs also because we measure the impact. So we used to have, we have like an internal way of impact measurement, but 2 former employees of AfricArena now started their own company based in Frankfurt called Leonardo, and they are the ones helping us to track the impact in the villages. So basically, we interview people with questionnaires before electrifying the village, during, and then during the usage of electricity. So we can really measure the change and how access to electricity improved their life or not. And I just wanted to finish my slide with just 4 lessons learned that might be useful for future African startups. I'm not the founder, I'm just a corporate finance manager, risk manager there. I'm far from being the founder, but I've been at AGD for 2 years already, and I'm seeing so much lessons learned and how we can improve things. The first one, I was speaking about the village selection, improving it, meaning that not going to a too big village, not going to a smaller village, just going to a village that makes sense for the population and for Africa Green Tech. The second one is focusing on the global value chain if you want to make an impact. What I mean by this is not only providing one service, but maybe trying to provide the electricity, the cold chain, the water purification system, and also starting from A to Z, meaning that we are not just arriving in the village, throwing the solar tanner and saying bye-bye, see you in 2 years. We are staying in the village. We always employ in each subsidiary fully local people that take care of the assets, that take care of the techniques, etc. The third one is improve the adaptability of the technologies. You saw it previously with the solar tanner, meaning that we were not afraid to change the solution. So we got rid, we keep obviously the existing asset of the solar tanner Amali, but we changed, we modified it to be more cost effective, something that goes also with the village selection. And the last one is strengthen our risk mitigation strategy. Personal story here, I arrived in the company 2 years ago, and I just started to ask questions about the risk. And they told me, okay, that's good. You're worried about what's going to happen in Africa, about the risk. You're going to become the next risk manager of AfricArena Tech. And now my work also for 2 years is to find the best way to mitigate the political risk, the weather risk, because climate change is increasing the climate risk, the extreme weather events in Africa. So yeah, this is just the 4 things that I also have been seeing in the past 2 years, and that might be helpful also for people starting their business in Africa. Yeah, maybe it might be related to electricity, but yes. Yeah, that's it. We are at the moment raising our Series B. Happy to talk to anyone also afterwards about the company, about what we do, and our future activities. Thank you very much. Yeah, sure. Please ask any question if you want.
It's quite of a technical question.
Okay.
But is it possible with your system, or do you plan to then integrate your mini grids in the actual grid of the country, or are they going to stay mini grids forever?
That's a very good question. So usually when we decide to electrify one village, it's because it's really, really, really far from the main grid. So usually we arrive in a village, there is no grid. And probably the government or the national electricity company didn't plan to electrify this village in the next 20 years. And that's why we come and we electrify. So there is really like an infinite, like a really, really small chance that there would be somehow a grid coming until the village, you know. So we are not like, it's not that we cannot do that, it's just that usually we arrive, there is no grid, and the villages are super remote from each other. It's maybe like 30 kilometers from the other village. So yeah, I don't know if it answers the question, but yeah.
On your map, you colored Kenya yellow. Are you
Yes.
already present in Kenya, and which area?
Yes, so in Kenya, can I do that? Yes. Yeah, okay, perfect. So yeah, as I said, we just signed a contract with the UNHCR, and we're gonna electrify 3 compounds in Kenya and Uganda. Yeah.
And where?
So it's Kampala, not Kampala, I have to find the 3 names. I have to remember the 3 names. I will tell you. So.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I just see you on the map, and clearly you're not in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions. Number one is, why are you not in Nigeria? I mean, considering the population and the market size of the country. I mean, every startup, like every business, is looking towards actually breaking forth into the Nigerian market, if you're talking about Africa. Secondly, for instance, in the Nigerian setting, let me take Lagos, for instance. Lagos is a very metropolitan city, but still electricity is a big challenge, especially for small businesses. And looking at your business model, looks like you're more focused towards villages that the government do not intend to actually provide electrification for. And so maybe the question becomes, what happens to businesses that are kind of thriving in metropolitan cities? Do you also have offers for these businesses? Or, I mean, they could just rely on generators and whatever.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm gonna start with the beginning about Nigeria. So we do it step by step. We would love, I think, to already be in other countries, but we started with the countries where we saw the need, we saw more the need, and we were connected to. So we started in Mali, then we went to Niger, then we went to Chad. We had a contract to electrify 50 villages in Chad with the president, but then the president got killed. So they said, Africa Green Tech, please go out of the country. The contract you had with the former government is not valid anymore. We don't want you here anymore. So we just went away. Then we went to Senegal, where we have now actually 2, and then we went to Madagascar. The fact that we are not in Nigeria yet, I think, is a strategic decision, but we have already so many countries, let's say, where we are already active, where we need to do things, and then maybe at some point we would go to Nigeria. But at the moment, this is the countries we focus on also from the beginning. And to answer the second question regarding the business model, regarding basically providing electricity to companies that are in bigger areas, our main and first focus was really to electrify small villages, remote and off the grid. We also had the idea to do what we call now impact cities, so electrifying bigger cities, but it went out of the scope because now we want to focus on the commercial and industrial. So this also means what you just said. We are trying to now electrify bigger companies or humanitarian organizations that can also be close to bigger cities. So it's kind of linked.
And so if I may, a question on that point, because if you have a village that is extremely remote, this village can be seen as a closed economy that itself is just existing, no trade with outside villages because they are so small and so remote. If you place energy there, there's always a case, I see the case that it's changing their lives. But how do you, amortize your investment? How do you see back the investments you place if the economy is kind of a closed economy just because it's so remote?
Yeah.
And that's adding to the question that my fellow friend behind asked, because if you start in nearby towns or suburbs, these economies are kind of open economies, and if you provide them electricity, then there's money that can flow in, and they will flow out again to you to pay back your investors.
Yeah, it's also a very good question. I come back to the first lesson learned: improve the village selection. This is now what we also try to do. So I understand the 2 points that you just mentioned, and so basically now because we believe a lot in the productive use of electricity, we try to understand how many small businesses tend to be interested to purchase electricity from Africa Green Tech. We also see, for example, in Madagascar, that it's like villages that are super remote from each other, but you have 3 or 4 risking mills. And these 3 or 4 risking mills, they make 40% of the revenues of the whole villages. So sometimes it can be a closed economy, but just the fact that there is one risking mill or one small company that consumes a lot can make 20 or 30% of the whole consumption of the village. But yes, I agree with you, and that's why we also try to improve the village selection. And now we are doing more and more research on the potential capacity of this small business to consume electricity, to develop themselves, to double their revenue, so to double their consumption. I mean, this is really complicated, but yeah, got you.
Can you maybe name some prices on the different models? And after that, maybe explain a bit how basically do you go there? How do you educate them on installing the whole thing, but also maintaining it in the long run?
So the price of the kilowatt hour depends on the country, because we cannot just arrive and say, okay, this is going to be the price of the kilowatt hour. This has to be agreed with the national agencies that make sure that you are not making a price too high. And before getting the concession, so basically before getting the authorization of electrifying 50 villages, they're going to make sure that you are not going to make a price too heavy. So it depends. It starts, for example, in Mali sometimes at 0.3 cents, can be until 0.4 sometimes the price of kilowatt hour in Madagascar. Really depends on the area as well. And what was the second part of how we do it? Yes. So basically the first thing that we do when we plan to electrify some villages in a country, we set up a subsidiary and in 99% of the subsidiary it's only local people. So we hire people in the country. And then for all the techniques, so all the engineers, 5 years ago, German engineers, for example, still came to Mali to train people in Mali. And now basically we have our hub of engineers in Africa. Our engineers in Germany are not training any people in Africa anymore. It's only, for example, one person in Mali goes to Senegal, is going to train one chief engineer, is going to train the whole country. And this goes like this. We have only one example in Madagascar where the managing director is from Germany. But in all the other subsidiaries, it's 99% of local people.
Okay, maybe 2 little questions more.
Yes.
Are you selling it directly with a
Yes.
one-off price too? And maybe how are the unit economics, I would say, like transportation, production, etc.?
Yeah, I don't have the slide here, but I have a perfect slide for this. The thing is, we do everything from A to Z, meaning that we are developing the solution, we are assembling the solution, we are assembling the solar tenors and all the other solutions in Senegal, in Dakar, where we have the new production site. And so it really depends. So basically, when we have to ship one container to Madagascar from Senegal, of course, it's way more expensive because it goes all around. But when we just have to send it to Niger, it's obviously a bit less expensive. I mean, in terms of OPEX, I could give you some numbers afterward if I check on the financial model. I don't know if you had any other question. The what, sorry? The price, yes, sure. So the former solar trainer Amélie was, let's say, between 100 and 180K, more towards 180. And now with the solar trainer Kenny, we are around 100K. So as I said, it's like, I would say, even more, like 30% less expensive to produce, because we are not obliged to put the solar panels around. We are now creating a solar fields, which saves so much money. And also now we have a partnership with Audi, and we are taking over the old batteries from the e-tron, which helps us to use second life batteries. It's the plan for this year also. So we save cost because we get them for free.
Yeah, my question continues with that too. What I would like to know is, do you only partner with non-governmental organizations and governments, or are you looking into partnering with commercial entities, like private entities that want to purchase this by themselves?
So you mean, for example, do we also sell the solution to NGOs, or can we also do this to companies, private? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So as I said, there was yes, I was. So here you see we are selling the solutions, or either direct sales or leasing them to the World Food Programme, SOS Children's Villages, and UNHCR. So for the moment, these are the new projects that we have, with these humanitarian organizations. And do we sell to big corporates? Not yet, I would say, but we have partnerships with Vilo. I guess people in Germany might know them. Vilo is helping us to develop water purification systems, so we have partnership with them. We also have partnerships with Polarstern. So we are not yet selling anything to these big companies. We are only selling or leasing, I would say, to NGOs, humanitarian organization, World Food Programme, etc., etc.
Cool. Thank you, Enzo.